Yeah, so this was actually something I've been thinking about a lot lately, specifically because of the games I've been playing, probably. But it's I'm starting like there's this idea or this attitude towards games that it feels almost like games are being judged based on their story alone, the quality of their storytelling, and that's becoming more and more prevalent, especially in the AAA space, where if the character isn't who you want them to be, if they speak a way that you don't like, or the story arc doesn't go where you want it to go, then it's a crap game, and that takes precedence over the gameplay completely, where games aren't even, especially in that AAA space, we're not really judging games on the gameplay anymore, specifically of whether or not something is fun. We're just looking at it as if it's like an interactive movie and saying, oh, this voice actor sucks, or this character looks weird, or whatever. And so we're getting and ironically, it's probably a lot in part due to Naughty Dog and the way then
That's what I was gonna say.
The
Yeah.
Last of Us and Uncharted, where they really kicked off this movement of like this Hollywood type style of game where if you can't if you're not hitting that bar, you might as well not even show up. And obviously that's not true in the indie space where people kind of forgive, the lack of graphics or whatever it is. But in this AAA space, we're seeing like games that maybe are like 90% of the way there are just called trash immediately. They don't sell nothing just because they're not hitting that like Sony bar. I say specifically Sony bar because I think right now they're the only ones who are hitting it with any consistency. Um, and so I was wondering if anyone feels the same way, if that's like something that is annoying to you, or does it apply to like some of your favorite games as well?
I,
Um,
I I think to a certain extent, gameplay, especially in AAA, is so smoothed out at this point. Like every game is focus tested to infinity. Like there's no resistance for players. Like that's why people attach so strongly to Elden Ring and the FromSoft games, because there's more fight back. And like, what are you going to criticize about the gameplay of like Astro Bot or Spider-Man? They play totally exactly how you'd expect them to play nowadays. Like there's very little variance from game to game.
It's
So
been a bit standardized too. There's sort of like a lot of third person shooters do generally play like the same level of quality or close to the same level of quality at this point. Like there's
The tough,
but yeah, I completely agree. I think games, stories have totally taken over, and I think The Last of Us is a big part of that. I remember like a lot of the praise early on for The Last of Us was like you was just like playing a movie, and I remember thinking, why is that like the goal of video games, to be as close to a movie as possible? There's so much more to a video game, and you can tell so much through the story of the gameplay as well. Yeah.
Yeah, the Souls games are like I'm a huge fan of the Souls games, and I know it irks a lot of people that the storytelling is very environmental. Most of the details you're picking out of like item descriptions, and the story that you actually experience in the game is very light. And I love like going on to YouTube and listening to people talk about the lore and learning about the character, the guy I just killed 10 minutes earlier, or whatever, right? And knowing absolutely nothing about him. But I just love the gameplay. It feels so good. It's so tight. It's well animated. The worlds are beautiful and to me. And the story is sort of like, I don't care
you
because it's
can get
fun.
by without it in a FromSoft game, or you can delve in because it's so incredibly deep. Whereas, like, say, like Red Dead 2, you couldn't go through that skipping every cutscene and not caring about anything. It would defeat half the purpose of the game, I feel like.
Yeah, or Last of Us, yeah.
Yeah, or Last of Us. Oh, that's probably how I would play it. That'd be great.
And then I was thinking about Coop, like you like releasing Billy and stuff, where Billy has like a very like a well-defined story, and there's lots of characters who are saying funny things, and it's worth looking into these little bits of pieces to get the story out of it, because it's satisfying at the end. But was that something that you were thinking about like going into it? Like do you find like when you're playing a game, if the story sucks, are you sort of like, like this isn't, I'm out, like this isn't for me?
Is it kind of so like I am guilty of the whole what you were saying before about how like Naughty Dog has set this bar, and within the AAA space, when another AAA game tries to do that, it's nowhere close to it. And video games are the only medium that have this issue where it's like if you go to the movie theater, you're watching a movie and they all look the same quality. They all you know, obviously an indie might not have the biggest budget, but like you know what you're getting into. A Marvel movie, Disney movie, Paramount, whatever blockbuster it is, they're all going to have relatively the exact same. They're all shooting digital for the most part. There's not this huge discrepancy where like, you know, you're not going to see a creature that's suddenly looking like the year 1996 in graphics, right? It's like we have all state of the art special effects, whereas in games it's like you've got this Naughty Dog stuff where it's like 10 out of 10 polish, and then you play a game that's also by a multi-million-dollar AAA studio that looks horrendous. Like they can't, like the mouths don't move when they're talking, and like they're just like the animations are ridiculous, and that does. I am guilty of getting pulled out of those experiences now because I'm like, hey, we know we can do better. Like we know we've achieved better, and now I expect almost all big studios to hit that mark. Like I'm playing Silent Hill 2 right now, and actually, when you first said this topic, I was thinking like, I don't know if games are becoming more story heavy, but I think they're becoming more cinematic. And what that does is it puts this thing in my mind where I'm expecting, if you set your game in a grounded way, I'm expecting for the characters and the story to go along with that setting. For example, in Silent Hill 2, again, I haven't finished it, so I don't know if this is part of the story, but like I just don't feel like the character is behaving like he should at all. He's a normal guy. Don't spoil it if this might be part of the story, I don't know, but like you're just a normal guy, and you're the first time that you see this horrendous looking creature, you just take a random stick with nails in it and you murder it. And not only are you seeing like a foreign headless limbless creature, but you're also taking the life of something, but your character has zero response to like how crazy that is that just happened. You just keep going through, and I'm like, that does take me out of it because I'm expecting your guy to at least scream or go, oh no, like what was that thing, or get afraid of the pools of blood.
How far in are you at this point?
I'm in that part where you're like shifting that house, like you can kind of
the
like
big
a Rubik's
cube puzzle.
Yeah.
So I can't even remember her name. So clearly the characters haven't made a big impact on me, but the girl who you run into a bunch of times over the course of the game,
the blonde one or the brunette?
The brunette. Yeah, you've met her a couple times, but I think like her reaction as well is very like muted on everything. I think just Silent Hill is the reason. Like it's very up for interpretation what's going on in those things, but
yeah. And there's also like that game specifically, there's like a really like neat disconnect because it's a Japanese studio and they're creating essentially like a Western style game, and there's a bit of like a disconnect between the way that stories are even told between the two cultures. And so it that was always something that really one of my buddies, he's a huge fan of Silent Hill, just studies it like it's for a degree or something, and he loved that's one of the things he loves about it. It was just because there's a bit of that strangeness to it, like especially that girl, that lady you're just talking about, like she's weird and you know it immediately. Like you're just like, something's off about every character in this game.
It's kind of like a Japanese lens on weird America, like the weirdest parts of America, and then this is a retelling of a 25-year-old game through a Polish lens of a Japanese lens of America. It feels like a translation of a translation in ways, but then a lot of people see a lot of depth to that, and I don't really, but
yeah, for me, all those things you just said, they don't come off as like a style or anything like that. It comes off like bad performance. Like it comes off like bad animation, bad performance, bad writing.
Did you play Deadly Premonition back in the day?
No, but I do know.
It feels exactly like that, like the way that he talks to the camera, and it's like a stunted,
trying to be kind of Twin Peaks kind of
exactly.
style.
Yeah.
And that like that chubby guy that you find, like that voice, like no offense to the voice actor, I just think it's like such a mismatch, and like I don't know, yeah,
way crazier in the PS2 version.
Just going to movies with that
a
little
whole
girl.
different thing, yeah.
But to answer your question, so like I think I don't think video games are telling good stories yet. I think there's very few examples of actually good stories. I think even RPGs that focus on story are usually terrible. Like if you really, the ones that people celebrate, if you really look at it, I'm like, that's a terrible story. Like it's 100 hours long, and that it basically results in just bad guy, good guy fighting each other. Like there's no depth, to me at least, at all. So I find most stories are really lacking, and that's why I think we over celebrate when a game has even remotely a decent storyline. People are like, whoa, what a masterpiece. I'm like, well, no, read a book or watch any movie, and those are way better.
Like I thought Cyberpunk was full of like really cool little stories, but they're all little stories that you could find in a book of short stories in a Cyberpunk universe or things like that. I think Remedy's kind of one of the only companies that's pushing something forward in regards to gameplay and story tied together. Like Naughty Dog's got the incredibly quadruple A, septuple A production values, but they're just making really fancy movies essentially with really well-defined characters and everything. But the Remedy games, they've got some crazy visual flair they're throwing into things that no one else is doing, and I don't know, it's different to me.
Yeah, Remedy feels like a good like TV studio, like with all their joint lore, like Lost or something, but even better, more intriguing. Just lots of little details that you can sink into. But that also goes in with the complaint of mine, where it's like I'm not a huge fan of like a world like environmental storytelling. I don't like having to look at like, I don't know, like, oh, the houses here in this area are all pointy. That means the mayor of 1920 made it. And like, oh, if I read the Wikipedia on this, like I hate that kind of stuff. It reminds me of also like Halo, where it's like Halo does have a rich universe, but in order to know any of it, you have to not play the game and just go read
get the novels
things. So I think we need to get better in the game industry with telling the stories in the game, but in a way that's actually well paced and well told and well expressed. I'm not a huge fan of also like audio logs or that kind of stuff. I just, if you can see, like, do it like a Naughty Dog, do it seamlessly in it, but like make it interesting, like elevate it a bit more. I don't want to go collect audio logs. They're so far and few in between that like I forget what the last one is that I just read. I'm playing Blueprints right now. There's no chance I'll ever know what the storyline of that game is unless I made it my full-time job to learn. So yeah, I don't know. That's why with Billy I tried to make the storyline, every side quest added richness to the narrative if you wanted to, but you could just focus on the main quest and it was pretty simple. And I tried to tell a story without you having to, read lore books or whatever. It's just right there for you. So that's kind of what I look for in story games.
Yeah, actually, one of the pieces of Billy that actually stuck out to me too was you go into that one town. I forget the name of the main place, but there's a guy there who says he basically gives you the background about how the place split based on the religion and stuff, and it's like you can feel that there's probably a lot of history there, and I feel like you in another game there would have been like a codex where you could read all this other stuff, but it's like that's all the character says, and then you move on, and you've always got it in your head that these cities, that this culture split based on this religion, and that's really all you need to know. Like the details about who did it and why they split, that would be something that I think a lot of games would be tempted to put in there to add bulk to their world. But it was also like completely unnecessary. Like I didn't need to know any of that. I just needed to know why these two cities existed, why this split in culture happened, and then moved on. And I thought that was actually like a really good example of like restraint in the game, of just sort of like, no, just giving you enough, just giving you what you needed, and you could kind of move on. You don't need to know like all the details.
There's a quote by, I think it's Lauren Lanning, that really hit with me when I was writing that game, and it was he I don't know the actual quote, but I'll just paraphrase what he was saying. But he was basically saying he treats his games Like if you're walking past a fence and there's something really interesting on the other side, like a big city or whatever, he prefers, instead of like having you able to like put your head over top of the fence and look at it all, just poking a few holes in the fence and seeing little glimpses of whatever that is on the other side. And he said he treats his storylines like that, where it's like, yeah, like kind of less is more, I guess, is this quick way of saying it. So I was always like, yeah, that's kind of cool. Like if you just hint, I don't have to go in depth with, you know, the religions, the stories. I don't have to give you the whole thing, but if you just hint at it, the player almost can come up with the rest if they want to, and it might be more impactful that way.
It's also the thing that annoys me about like Bethesda games, and or specifically like Elder Scrolls and Starfield and all that. Like you just get you talk to people in such inhuman ways. Like you go up to someone and they're instantly telling you about the history of this emperor, and like that conversation would never happen in real life. Like you'd walk for one thing, I would never talk to this person, but now I have to because it's part of the game. It feels like I need to talk to all these NPCs to get all this information, so I do. And then they're giving you these like encyclopedic responses that are just not human in any way, and they're still doing that. Like Starfield still does that,
Yeah.
and it's so ridiculous that that's the way that they think games need to be, and games need to communicate their story, or characters, you know, dialogue and all that kind of stuff. It's we should be well beyond that. Like that's crazy to me.
Yeah, like walking past someone in Starfield and they just happen to be like, "Oh yeah, my Sally fell down the well the other day," and it just adds to your quest log. I'm like, I hate that kind of stuff so much.
Yeah.
I'm playing South of Midnight right now. Well, I'm not playing it. I'm not gonna keep playing it. I think it's terrible, but it did something. It's just such a minor gripe, but it does kind of work back with this story, this conversation about story, which is, I mean, I've looked for jobs in at game studios, and a lot of them are hiring, but they're never actually like writing. Like it's so hard to find an actual writer's job. A lot of times they're given to just, you know, a designer, or it's kind of an afterthought. There's no real writing positions, and I can tell as well. And like in South of Midnight, for example, the very beginning, the opening scene, your character is like terrified of this potential hurricane that might be coming. I don't know. She's like 25, or she looks 25, but she's like terrified of this storm and being alone because her mom left her at home alone. But then literally 2 minutes later, you're fighting a flying demon and you kill this thing, and she goes, "Look at me, I'm fighting comic book characters."
Oh.
And I'm like, okay, first of all, have we not moved on from the Marvel dialogue? And second of all, what happened to the afraid girl who was afraid of the weather? Now she's like super confident about fighting demons. To me, again, no one will pick this up when they play it. No one will really care. But I was like, that's such an inconsistent character thing where I'm like, is she a superhero now, or is she like yeah, her character makes no sense. She's just a regular human, but now she's got this like confidence as if she has superpowers, but she doesn't. She's just a person with a couple sticks in her hands. Like she was afraid of rain 2 seconds ago. So it's like really, yeah, just very weird. I think we need more storytelling and people to like actually keep track of like characters, make them consistent, because for people that do care about story, it does stand out to me, and it turns me off big time when I see that kind of stuff where I'm like, oh, that's such a obvious horrible thing.
That's a complaint I know that there's got to be like a line drawn, because a character in a game or a movie or whatever eventually needs to go on the quest. But I always think about if I was in the Harry Potter world and I saw someone pull out a stick and shoot a fireball at someone, the idea that my reality had just been shattered to where I now have to believe in magic, and I'm seeing people immolate one another with fire, that would make me go insane. Like, on the spot. I would lose my mind, and I would start crying or start, who knows, right? Like the response from the average human would just be petrified. Like you would be so afraid instantly that you would never move. You would just be in this catatonic state. So
it'd be a fun game.
Go ahead. Yeah. So the fact that like in games or movies, people sort of they acclimate to this magic or whatever it is going on to them within seconds. I think that you could spend at least a little bit of time just showing them kind of dealing with that, right? Like just it's okay to make to have your main characters. I know they're supposed to be like strong leads, but like you can make them afraid for a couple seconds or a minute or two, right? To like just show them building up to this thing, and that's also makes them feel brave when they actually do get over that fear, right? As opposed to just instantly saying,
And human, too.
shows growth as well.
yeah, like it's just always been kind of a crazy thing to me. I understand there's got to be a line drawn, but
they're psychopaths. Like they're looking
Yeah.
at, they're literally looking at demons, and they're like, "Yeah, I can do this," and they're a literal person. They're just a human being.